ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्।
We have been seeing the qualities of a devotee of Lord Krishna, or any Bhagavan for that matter. In general, what are the qualities of a true Bhakta of the Lord? Continuing on that, last week or last session we saw forgiveness. Forgiveness is considered as one of the very important trait of a devotee. Because when we hold on to something for a long time, we become heavy and burdened. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a decision to let go what is unpleasant. It is a bridge that you slowly build while walking towards God. Because there are so many regrets in our life, so many misgivings in our life with people, and so long as we hold on to that, we only carry burden on our head. It is like going on a long journey. If your baggage is very light, it will be enjoyable. If you already have a big baggage and you keep on adding more things to your bag, finally, when you reach, even at the end of the journey, you will be so tired and fatigued. Our life should not be a burdensome journey. When we are walking in this world towards God, lighten yourself, let go, unburden, forgive. Let go of all the unpleasant things that you have had with the people, misgivings, and the anger, frustration, all those things with people. You just let go and let God. Let Him take care of it. Continuing, he said, contentment. Contentment is where doing our best and receiving the result as it comes. After planting a fruit tree, you wait patiently. What you get is what it gives, nothing more. So from a apple tree you can only expect apple, if at all. You cannot expect oranges. So also while dealing with the people around, whatever be their ability and capacity, that much only they can perform, even if at all they perform to the full extent. So we do our best, as Gurudev would say, do your best, leave the rest. And when you are inwardly peaceful, contentment, no one can steal that. No one can take that. That's the only priceless possession that you can hold on to. Your joy, your contentment, your fulfillment, and it cannot be taken away by anybody in this world. Self control. Affirmation without discipline is a delusion. So we have seen that in detail how it is so. And discipline is the bridge between the goal and the accomplishment. Most people will have a great dream, but they never wake up to accomplish that. Any achievement requires certain amount of discipline, whether it is in the world of sports, in the world of profession, in the spiritual world, in everything that we engage in, certain amount of self discipline is required, and with the selfless discipline alone the mind becomes more focused on what needs to be accomplished. Continuing, we saw a devotee is a man of conviction. A no uttered with deepest conviction is better than yes uttered merely to please, or worse, to avoid trouble, Mahatma Gandhi has said. So, the conviction with which we say yes as well as no are important. Conviction comes before commitment, because anything that we want to commit in our life, first we need to have an intellectual conviction that yes, I want to accomplish that. Then only we will be able to put our best foot forward and complete the job. So also a devotee, his commitment to God is so complete because his conviction is that I want to reach him. This is my goal. So the dedication is continuous momentum. In any direction you go is dedication. Many times we get we get to wander around, wander away from our goal. It's because we do not have a continuous inspiration that is our needed for reaching the goal. Devotion is the emotional expression of intellectual conviction. Two aspects of dedication. One is the emotion, another is the intellect. At the emotional level, it is the love for God, and intellectually, it is conviction that that is exactly what my goal is. Gurudev always said that head and the heart together is a yogi. Head alone is only a scholar, and heart alone is an emotional, sentimental individual. Many people who are religious, so called religious, are not those who have thought about it. They have not intellectually convinced themselves. There is no rationality. Most of them go to a temple, do puja, and do rituals, but there is no rationality. They will never think about it. They never read. They never enhance their understanding. They merely do whatever others doing or others ask them to do. And so therefore they are very sentimental about what they worship or whom they worship. And that's why fanaticism also comes. On the other hand, one who is just intellectual and never do anything to account to do the required amount of expression of faith in the form of devotion to the Lord, such an individual may be a man of knowledge, man of words, but such an individual doesn't move forward because he has not given his mind to the Lord, does not have the loving connection with the Lord. That's why Bhagavan earlier says, Mayeva mana adatsva, give your mind to me. Mayi buddhim niveshaya, give the intellect also to me. Nivasishyasi mayeva, then thereafter you will reach and you will remain in me only. Adavurdvam na samshayaha, there is no doubt about that. Further, free from agitations. Yasmat na udvijate lokaha, lokat na udvijate chayah. So that the devotee is one who does not cause any disturbance to the world, nor does he get disturbed by the world. He is at peace with himself, and in his presence, everybody is at peace. Free from excitement, envy, fear, and anxiety. Excitement is from what is accomplished, gained. One gets very proud about it. Envy is due to what is not accomplished, and somebody else got it, so you become so unhappy about that. Fear is not being sure about the future. What if? And anxiety is about wanting to know the future. So all these are all absent in the devotee of the Lord. And continuing, further qualities we saw, a devotee is free from expectations, being independently happy with the Lord and having a clear vision about the mukti, the moksha, the liberation. He is pure, the purity by nature with no possibility of becoming impure again. As I explained to you, it's about pavitrata or naturally pure and not getting impure at all. That's the nature of the heart of a devotee. Efficiency in action. Due to mindfulness and absence of anxiety about the result, the devotee is a man of excellence. When he performs any action, his mind is 100%, and also because of his dedication to God. Uninvolved in the worldly matters. Mind that has submitted everything to God's will not sit and worry about what is happening, and therefore udasinaha, uninvolved and trouble-free mind. Mind that has become disciplined to think by choice. The mind is which is not disturbed for petty things, even big things, because he understood that, he has understood that Thinking is by choice, not by compulsion. So he can, at any point of time, he can let go of the mind and the usual habit of unnecessary thinking. Given up all selfish initiatives due to fulfillment and contentment, he does not have any personal goal other than reaching the Lord. There is no other selfish goal in his or her mind. Further qualities we saw: free from temporary excitements, being attuned to the permanent bliss within, free from hatred, seeing one presence of the Lord in everybody's heart, free from sorrow, not attached to temporary gains and losses, free from intense longing by recognizing desire as a product of notion of joy, given up good and evil by the awareness that both result in rebirth, fully devoted to God, unconditional love for the Lord. So these are the things we saw in the previous session. So further continuing, the Lord explains in the next set of verses. Further qualities are: he is same to friend and the foe. Sama shatrau cha mitre cha. Krishna says that a devotee is one who neither has too much attachment to friends, nor does he entertain extreme hatred and bitterness towards his enemy. He is same, samaha. And how is that possible? Because recognizing the fact that both friend or foe are temporary. We think that, it's in Bhajagovindam also beautifully, Bhagavan Shankaracharya puts it. Shatro mitre putre bandho ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandho sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsruja vedajnanam. In Shatru, in Mitra. So all the Shatru, Mitre, Putre, Bandhav, whether it's one's own son, one's own offspring, or one's own relatives, why it is so? All of them Vigraha and Sandhi. They come near at some point of time. Sandhi means they go, Vigraha means they go away sometimes, or they have, Sandhi means they come. Meaning, it is like traveling in a train, or traveling in a flight. When you are sitting there, next to you there is a person who may be talking. You may probably spend 2 3 4 hours talking various things, politics and business, and many and when the time comes when you both have to get out and go on your own, to your own destinations, then you say bye bye, and then we'll see you later. Probably you may not meet at all. But during that 3 4 hours, you had a great time with each other, talking to each other. That is fine. But then, at the time when the journey ends, you have to part ways. So also in this world, all relationships, mother, father, brother, sister, friend, foe, neighbor, known, unknown, your colleague, boss, everyone is subject to coming for some time in your life and subject to disappearing at some part of time of your life. Either you go away from them or they go away from you. And when you are there together, you can share many things. But do not maintain a false notion that it is going to be permanent. No relationship is permanent. The relationship with the very word means it is temporary. So therefore, a devotee is one who remains same, whether one is a friend or a foe. His attitude towards them is the same, for both of them are temporary. And also, he maintains the awareness of the presence of God in everyone. So even a Shatru, in the case of Sri Rama also, Sri Rama did not look at Ravana as an enemy at all. He is a person who, because of lack of knowledge and correct understanding, or some kind of a delusion or pride, some ego, he had committed a crime of kidnapping Sita. Having understood that, he gave him lot of chances to rectify himself. I often say that this world that we have come into, where we are living, is a correction facility. Why are we here? We are here because we have done certain things, certain actions for which the results are to be experienced here in this world. So we have come. And when we have come into this world, we have to make sure that we don't commit the same mistakes which we have done before. So we have to correct ourselves constantly, and this correction alone will lead us to evolve further to the next level of the soul's journey. If we don't correct and commit the same mistakes that we have done before, then Bhagavan says, if you are not ready to evolve, so go back to the same condition. So, here the awareness of God's presence in all is the evolution of the soul. The soul evolves in recognizing its higher nature. Not only its own higher nature, a higher nature of all the souls around oneself. Everyone is essentially divine. Everyone is essentially godly. Everyone has got the purity of mind. Some occasions, some reasons where the impurities have come in to the individual, and he or she is not aware of that even. But that doesn't mean I should look at only the impurities of the person and reject. So, therefore, when one recognizes the purified nature of the soul or immaculate nature of the soul, he would recognize the same immaculate presence in everybody around. And that makes him evolve so quickly and able to treat everyone equally. And such a devotee of God, he does not give too much attention or importance to who praises him or who ridicules him, who honors him, who dishonors him, seeking no attention or recognition. See, when I know what I am doing, when I am doing it for God, do I need anybody's approval or do I need anybody's praise for that? Every day I eat food. You all eat food. Are you to be congratulated for that? It is said that one police officer, was doing his job, whatever he is supposed to do, and he completed the job, and he went to his senior, and he said, "I have completed the job." The senior said, "Okay, are you not thanking me for what I have done?" He said, "Why should I thank you? That is what you are supposed to do." See, in this world, even to do what we are supposed to do, we want people to recognize it. It's interesting when your children are going to school, and then they are supposed to study, and when they study, then they get their grade A or B or whatever it is, and they come home and say, "Daddy, Mommy, I have got grade A." Okay. Oh, you are not even saying, "I am great, I got A." You are supposed to be doing that. I mean, it is interesting that we expect recognition and to be noticed for things which you are supposed to do. Nobody is congratulating me for eating everyday food. Nobody is congratulating me that I am breathing. What do you mean by that? That's what you're supposed to do. So, a devotee of the Lord is one who knows that he, being the servant of the Lord, ever available to serve the Lord in any ways and every ways possible, he keeps doing without paying any attention to anybody, whether somebody is respecting what he does, honoring what he does, or ridiculing. He continues to engage. That's why Gurudev, 40 years of his work, 42 years, Narayana, Narayana. Bhagavan wants me to do things and I am doing. There is no need for anybody to put me on the stage and congratulate me for this. Nor, anybody, I mean, even notice or take notice of or give importance to somebody who does not like what I am doing and ridiculing me. It doesn't matter because Bhagavan, the Lord, knows what I am doing. The self, the God's presence is unaffected if others recognize it or not. One who recognizes or realizes the Lord's presence within He knows that what I am doing is known to the Lord who is in my heart. Whether somebody recognizes it or not, it is secondary to me. Hmm? I know it. So that way, he's same in honor and dishonor. And when it comes to physical body, he is same whether he is experiencing heat or cold. This does not mean he will not feel the heat or he will not feel the cold. No, no, no. He reduces the comforts as a discipline, not torturing the body. It's not that when it is cold, he will go and stand in the snow or take a cold bath. Not necessarily. He understands the body will feel cold and heat. That is the dharma of the body. And it is dharma of the body to react to cold, react to heat, etc. But I am only a witness to this. Huh? If there is fire, fire is hot. It is not something which I would like it to be. Just like fire is hot, the body will feel the heat. Just like the snow is cold, the body feel the cold. And that is its dharma, its nature. So I don't need to sit and worry about that. Whatever needs to be done to make sure that my physical body is not falling sick, accordingly one has to protect, and that's much of attention he also gives. But overly indulging in comforting the body or overly denying what the body needs, torturing the body, is not the way of a devotee. He remains detached. Detached means what? Finding greater joy in solitude. In that solitude, as Gurudev would say, if you can't enjoy your own company, why inflict it on others? So first of all, we have to start insisting company. Find joy in that quiet hours. Find joy in your own inner silence. Find joy in that quietness of the mind. Find joy in the peace that prevails in the absence of thoughts. Once you start enjoying that inner peace, inner quietude, inner silence, and thereafter, you don't need any external aid for making you happy. So, that is the nature of a devotee who constantly feels the presence of the Lord in solitude, in quietude. Continuing on the qualities here, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, he is same in praise and criticisms. It does again, as we saw, whether somebody is praising or somebody is ridiculing. See, any accomplishment accomplished by an individual belongs to the body or a mind or intellect. A successful person who had won a Nobel Prize for his intellectual achievement, or a great actor or a musician who has been given awarded for Padma Shri in India, the Padma Shri, or here Oscar award and things like that for great performance. Then he was so good in his acting. Or a person who won an Olympic medal for physical sports event. All these belong to body or mind or intellect. But the self within, the Paramatma who dwells in a sports person, a Paramatma dwells in a musician, the Paramatma lives in a scientist, he is unaffected by the qualities of the body, mind, and intellect. So, for the world, they do not see the one who is present irrespective of who the person is, whether he is a failure in life or a great successful person in life. The self that is present in one is the same. It is like this. A golden ornament, for example. The gold ornament is made by a person who has learned the art of creating beautiful ornaments, a goldsmith per se, for that matter. He created a beautiful golden chain. And after having completed the job and given to put it for sale, would he ever bother about to whom this chain is going to go? As far as he is concerned, he has completed his job and presented it to the world. Somebody may be buying it for his or her own purpose. Somebody may be buying for a dead person also to put it on. Somebody may buy for giving it to somebody for marriage. It does not matter. Once you have presented to the world, it is over. Where it goes, so who is buying, it doesn't matter. In the same way, consciousness in us, Paramatma in us, illuminating the body, illuminating the mind, illuminating the intellect. The pure illumination comes from the consciousness. Whether the body is an efficient body, the mind is a beautiful mind, or intellect is a strong, sharp intellect, it does not matter. Like a current that is passing through bulb, current doesn't decide what kind of a bulb it should pass through. Current is current, power is power, irrespective of what kind of a bulb. It may be 2-watt bulb or 200 watts bulb. It does not matter to the power. In the same way, the Lord who is present in us, continuously blessing us in every way, if we are able to accomplish anything, it is accomplishment of the body, mind, and intellect, and not the self. Having understood this, a devotee is ever associated, identified with a Paramatma within, does not get elated, is not getting elated because of somebody's praise, nor he feel depressed and dejected and unhappy because somebody has criticized. As Christ would be put on the door, on the cross, and he would say, they know not what they are doing. O Lord, forgive them. Because even as me, I'm going to be killed, put on the cross, and to be nailed to death, my body is not me. It is my body. It is not me, the body. My car is not me, the car. My hat is not me, the hat. My cloth is not me, the cloth. My computer is not me, the computer. Me, I am, is different from the computer I own. Similarly, the praise belongs to the body or to the mind or the intellect. Criticism belongs to the body, belongs to the mind, belongs to the intellect, not me. That is the nature of a devotee. And in feeling fulfilled in all conditions, santushta satatam, always in contentment, knowing that desire is the root cause of all evil and desire is born of superimposed notion of happiness. So inner contentment comes to us only when we have filled up our heart with joy. See, when you go to a state of sleep, when you're sleeping, would you expect anybody to praise you or criticize you or ridicule you? Do you want anybody to respect you? Do you want anybody to help you in doing anything? Do you demand anything from the world? Once you are in the state of oneness with the self unknowingly in sleep, you have no desire, nothing to accomplish, nothing to prove to anybody. It does not matter to you how you are lying down. Nobody knows. Nobody, even if somebody comes and say, hey, the way he is sleeping, it's so funny, putting his head in between the legs and all those things. Does not matter to you. Does it matter to you? In the same way, a devotee who is fully content and identified with the bliss of the Lord, it does not matter to him at all, because the world outside and whatever be the objects that are available to him to enjoy, he knows that the object of desire is nothing but an object of notion of happiness. And having given up those kind of notions in his mind, it is usual example is given that a person who is walking in a dry desert, suddenly he finds some water in the desert, and when he closely observes, he realizes that is nothing but a mirage. With knowing that it is a mirage, will he rush towards that for quenching his thirst? Knowing that it's an illusion. In the same way, a person who has realized the nature of the objects, they have no iota of happiness. Having understood that, will he ever be interested to pursue them? So he is feeling completely fulfilled, content in all conditions. No attachment to the place of dwelling. Aniketaha. You know, Gurudev used to travel so much. For so many years, he never stayed in one place more than a week. He will stay for the week, morning till evening, various satsangs and talks and other things. And then once that work is over, he will immediately leave to the next place. Only in the beginning stages of his missionary work, he was staying more than 20, 30 days in the same place. And people used to ask him, why, Swamiji, during your early days, you used to stay 30, 40 days in one place, 2 months, 3 months, and nowadays you're hardly there for a week. He will laughingly would say, during those times in the beginning, nobody else was there. I got stuck in one place. Nobody else was calling me. So I have to be in one place only. Now I have so many places to go, so many people to meet. So when my work is over, over. I just move. And he always told us, you do your work. Once your work is complete, move. Huh? So aniketaha, never holding on to any place. He will keep moving. So the devotee is one who does not have any possession, any notion to possess anything in this world, even his own dwelling place. He would not stay for too long. He will keep moving. So free with no baggage to carry, nothing in his head to carry, or no attachment to things. And but at the same time, he has steady mind. It's a beautiful way of putting. Aniketaha never stays in one place, but sthiramadihi, mind is steady. Our case is opposite of that. We do have asthiramadihi, but niketaha. We stay in one place, but mind is all over the place. In the case of a devotee, he stays nowhere, but mind is steady. Sthiramadihi. Meaning what? Minds focus on inner peace than external prosperity, external success. So once one has reached that inner peace and joy, his mind is steadily focused on that and that and that alone. If a crying child is there, you know, and the child is crying for, I often experience that when people come for Bhiksha here and all, the child is crying. So the mother would say, don't cry, Swamiji is there. They always make Swamiji as a threat to them. So when I come, the child becomes very quiet because he has been told that if Swami is there, he will get upset and angry, then therefore don't cry. So the moment I walk into that room where the child is crying, when it stops, I know the child is not stopping out of joy, it is out of fear. So I go to the child and say, okay, now I will give you a lollipop, okay? So don't cry. So there is a smile in the child. And there is expectation also. The child starts to expect, okay, when? Okay, when is he going to give the chocolate? When is he going to give me the lollipop? And then I sit down and maybe I was talking to the parents or something. But the child's focus will not change. He will keep looking at me, keeping looking at my hand, whether I'm going to give, where am I going to give from, which way. And he is, I know when I look at, okay, the child is constantly looking at my hand. Okay, then I will pick up the chocolate or the candy or anything and give. And the moment he gets it, he gets such a pleasant smile because he feels that what I have committed to him is given to him. Interesting thing is, next time when I meet the child, immediately the child looks at me and looks at my hand, whether he's got a chocolate now also, this time also. See, mind's focus is clear that the child knows this Swami will give me chocolate, this Swami will give me lollipop. In the same way, just giving an example, a devotee's mind is focused on the inner peace. Wherever he would go, whatever be the work he would doing, he will be doing. Mind has the access to the inner peace. Always. And the example of the child I gave just to give you an idea about that. The child, moment he looks at the Swami, will know that it's a chocolate. In the same way, by just remembrance of the Lord, mind is at peace. That's the nature of a devotee. Sthiramadihi, ever steady. And so, having completed all the qualities about the devotee, now Bhagavan gives final words. What does he say? This is a dharma. What I spoke to you is dharma. What do you mean by a dharma? So dharma has many different many meanings. One is, as Gurudev put, dharma is nature of a thing from which it doesn't deviate. Like fire has got heat. Heat is the dharma of fire. Light is the dharma of a lamp or the fire again. So when we say the dharma of sun is light and heat, in the absence of light and heat, sun is not sun. In the absence of sweetness, sugar is not sugar. So in the same way, dharma of a thing is that it cannot be away from it. A thing cannot be away from it, because what defines that object or a thing is its dharma, its nature. Dharma is the nature of a thing from which it doesn't deviate. So that is one meaning of dharma. The second meaning of dharma is, there are many meanings, I am going to give few only. Dharma is law followed by people who live in a civilized society. A culture is a culture only when the people have certain personal disciplines and which they follow for the sake of collective living. So in civilized society, dharma is the law. Like we travel in a road, and then when you're driving, when there is a red light, you stop, and that is your dharma. You are supposed to do that, because when you stop, somebody else can use the road, and then when it becomes green, you go. So this is how a civilized society will work. Give and take. They know that you have equal rights like mine. If you are using the road, I would not. If I am using the road, you don't. So dharma is abiding by the law of the land. All right. Dharma is a specific set of duties to be fulfilled by those who are given the authority to undertake certain tasks. So, like if there is a doctor, a physician, what is this dharma? When a patient comes, making sure that he understands the problem and diagnoses it, and should give the correct medicines to make him come out of his sickness, right? So that is his dharma. A king, or a soldier, or a police officer, a lawyer, a bus driver. They all, every one of them, a teacher in the school. Every role that everybody plays, whatever be the authority that is given to them, whatever they need to do at the specific duties, that is also called dharma. So one meaning of dharma is nature of a thing. Another meaning of dharma is disciplines that are to be followed. Another meaning of dharma is the duties that are to be fulfilled by an individual who is given an authority to complete that job or certain task. And there is a dharma for every one of us as personal discipline to make our mind healthy. Don't steal others' wealth. Don't indulge in too much of senses. Do not do unlawful things that will be violent to the world. So there are certain things which we have as personal discipline. Don't tell lies. Don't speak on the back of someone. Don't gossip. Don't talk ill of others. These are also personal disciplines. They are also called dharma. It does not involve society. It does not involve the law. It may not sometime involve anybody else also. These are all the things that we are told as values to be cultivated within ourselves for our own purity of mind. But there is one more dharma which is in this context is dharma also indicates the characteristics of a person aspiring for specific goal. Here it is devotion to God. So, whatever Bhagavan has said in the chapter 12 here, all those qualities which he has spoken are all considered as the dharma of a Bhagavad Bhakta, a devotee of the Lord. अद्वेष्टा सर्वभूतानां मैत्र करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः समदुःखसुखक्षमी सन्तुष्टः सततं योगी यतात्मा दृढनिश्चयः मय्यर्पितमनोबुद्धिः यो मे मत्मसमीप्रियः and and then यस्मान्नो उद्विजते लोकः लोकात् न उद्विजते च यः हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैः युक्तो मुक्तः यस्य च मे प्रियः अनपेक्षश्चिर्दक्षः उदासीनो गतव्यतः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी. All those various things he pointed out as qualities which we discussed in the previous sessions, all are the dharma of a devotee. So therefore he says, etu dharmyam ridamidam yatoktam paryupasate. If a person has been following the qualities and cultivating those qualities as it is given to you, hey Arjun, then such an individual become the one who is able to reach the highest. And he also requires Shraddadana Matparamaha, and having a faith. Faith in the context of devotion is what is unknown can be known only by faith. What is unknown will remain unknown if one does not have the belief in the possibility of knowing it. In the path of knowledge, one can one can go to this teacher, one can study the scriptures, one can get intellectual understanding of what is unknown. See, how many of us have gone and landed in moon to see what is there? As far as you and I are concerned, what is in the moon is unknown. But when you ask Armstrong, his writing, saying that this is what I did, this is what I saw in moon. So you believe in what he has written, right? It is not my experience or your experience. But don't we feel that one who has gone there and looked at things, he had written down, and that is his personal account of it, personal experience of it. Therefore, it is true. In the same way, a guru or the scriptures, when they talk about the nature of liberation, the nature of the Lord, etc., it is not for us to doubt. If you doubt, then you will remain, what is unknown will remain unknown only to you. Only when we take up the words of the teacher and the scriptures, take it seriously and proceed in that path, what they have seen, we will be able to see as well. What is unknown will become known to us. That requires faith. And as Krishna would say, not only just the faith, but keeping me as the ultimate goal. That is the nature of a devotee. A devotee is one who strongly believes that the goal of life is vision of God. He strongly believes that will fulfill him completely. It will become his own personal experience of seeing the Lord, and that is his primary and only goal. So, such is the nature of a devotee. That's how Bhagavan concludes this chapter on devotion. Now, I explained to you before also that the Bhagavad Gita is an explanation of the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that, comes from Chandogya Upanishad. This is one of the Mahavakyas. Among the 4 Mahavakyas, this is considered as the Upadesha Vakya, that is, advice to the seeker. What is the advice? An advice to tell him that this is what you need to follow. What is that? You are that. What you are looking for in your life, the ultimate joy, ultimate happiness, ultimate freedom, immortality, deathlessness, that is what you actually are. Because of your present identification with matter changing, ephemeral, temporary, perishing, subject to death, subject to decay, subject to change, you are unhappy, miserable, constantly from running from helter skelter here and there, until you realize your true nature, you will be miserable only, unhappy only, birth after birth. So you must realize you are that. So Mahavakya is Tattvamasi. So in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna spoke about you, meaning every one of us, what we need to do as where we are right now in the field of action, and field of action where we are so selfishly engaged. So Bhagavan in detail spoke about how Karma Yoga helps to purify the mind and you overcome the desire for doing selfish actions, becoming selfless, having developed a certain respect and dedication to God, and slowly moved on to reducing your actions to the only to those which are dedicated to God and letting go of all others, mind becoming calm, sit quietly in meditation up to that point. Then he started to explain from 7th chapter onwards, the next set of 6 chapters, that. That means the goal, the Lord, the Supreme. What is that eternal? What is that immortal? What is that highest which you need to reach? And what are the qualities of that? And he explained all that 8, 9, 10, 11. In 11th chapter, he even showed, demonstrated what that is as the Vishwarupa Darshanam. In 12th chapter, he concludes this topic of that by saying, you by devotion alone can really have the vision of God. So, next third set of 6 chapters, which we are going to see, will be about how to adjust our life, adjust our mind to make this possible. That is, if I am that, and then if that is the case, if I am that, then I am not this. I am not this BMI. So, I am not this must be clearly understood. Then only I can completely merge in the understanding I am that. That this has to be given up for that to be accomplished. And how that can be done with the correct knowledge, that will be spoken in the following 6th chapter from 13th onwards, and conclusion will be in the 18th chapter about what is that state of liberation and how by giving up all that one has been pursuing as personal even sadhana, and complete surrender to the Lord is the way to reach the highest that way. So in essence, Bhagavad Gita points out that the individual soul, Atman, is none other than Brahman, the Supreme Soul. So when we recognize that Bhagavad Gita is none other than an extension of the Upanishads. Upanishads talk about the highest goal of life, Brahma Vidya. That is the main subject matter of all the Upanishad. In fact, Bhagavad Gita also, the main subject matter is Brahma Vidya only. That's why at the end of every chapter we say, Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam. Brahma Vidyayam. In this Brahma Vidya, Yoga Shastre, which is also a practical guide for seekers, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Other words, Narayana Nara Samvada, between Jiva and Ishvara Samvada, the dialogue between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, between a man and God, between Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna representing the Lord and Arjuna representing the man, or Krishna representing Narayana, Arjuna representing Nara, Krishna representing Ishvaraha, Arjuna representing Jiva. Samvada, the dialogue, in that Dvadashodhyayaha, this is Bhakti Yoga. So that way we have completed the 12th chapter, and we Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।